Good afternoon, good evening, welcome. Today we're going to talk about beyond compliance, securing API supply chain before it actually secures you. So we're going to talk about those hidden data sets, we're going to talk about board dashboards, and then we're going to talk about 3 pillars of governing AI supply chain. Now I know everyone's excited about AI. We hear it every day, we read about it in the news, but no one's really reading what those ingredient lists are. The supply chain isn't just cloud anymore, and it's not just SaaS. We have AI everywhere. We've added opaque models, we've got data sets from everywhere, we have model updates, and it's all hiding behind the vendors we already trust. So we're going to focus on those 3 pillars: transparency, readiness, and metrics. Because if you can't see it, you can't govern it. So, got to start with some definitions. Let's get us all on the same page. So when people hear AI supply chain, they generally sort of picture the APIs and the vendors, but that's narrow. I want to actually increase sort of your scope for it. So AI supply chain includes every dependency in your business that now relies on public tools your employees use, say ChatGPT, enterprise systems embedding AI, let's use Copilot, and then vendor products quietly integrating models and internal automations you've built. All right, let's say Claude Anthropic. All right, so it isn't just that IT plumbing. It's now every workflow your org touches could have AI stitched in. So each of these is going to introduce either a new risk or is actually amplifying existing risk. And together they form a new web of dependencies most orgs don't even know they have. Now, before we get too far, I wanted to find some more definitions for you. So we've got provenance, all right? This is a traceable lineage of the data in the models. Who touched them? How did they change? And where do they come from? That's really important because when we're looking at our training, we want to know where did all that data come from that we're now actually relying on as potential truth. We want to understand what a model drift is. So that's when a model's behavior changes over time because the world or the data changes without a human awareness or control. Again, very important. Autonomy, systems making and acting on decisions faster than oversight can keep up with, creating runway automation risk. That's very important. And then prompt agent exploit, so attacks that manipulate logic or behavior from inside your tools, like in a prompt injection or malicious chaining. That's where we're really relying on sort of the guardrails to protect us. Then synthetic content, AI generated data or media that looks legitimate, but is entirely fabricated, amplifying misinformation and data pollution. We'll really dig into that one later because that's sort of something people want to argue constantly about. All right. So if ChatGPT answers a support ticket with hallucinated pricing, that's synthetic content in action. Believable, fast, but wrong. All right. Now, so let's talk about the old risks, but we've got new volume, if you will. AI amplifies your exposure, automation, and your accountability. So data loss actually becomes your model leakage. Vendor risk turns into a black box dependency. Bias scales faster than any QA process can catch, and compliance failures now move at machine speed. All right, this is crazy. So that data provenance, what we just talked about, inputs now establish trust, not outputs. Okay, this is what, when we talk about what's feeding our AI, we have to know that the information that came in was not garbage, because now it is very much garbage in, garbage out. So we want to know the data provenance of things. Model drift. So that's that behavior shifts without warning or visibility. So as new data is coming in, does it change the way the model is going to answer? Is it, and it really comes back to even how they tweak the values associated with the data coming in. So you could see things answer in very different manners. All right, prompt and agent exploits, we talked a little bit about that. But bias, which has always existed, so systematic distortion, even minor biases. So in this, in data, in our decision making, even in our assumption, that difference is now at a scale and speed. A single biased input doesn't just affect one decision, it actually ripples across all your systems, markets, and models in milliseconds. So choosing and leaning one direction or another could actually influence everybody's decisions that come after that, simply because you went, no, this data looks better than that data. We've got that vendor risk, that black box dependency. You're buying outcomes, not visibility. Very often we're like, the vendor will tell us, hey, this is amazing. It does exactly what you want, and it will always answer the question exactly correct. Well, but what is it? How do we know that was the case? And then finally, Our old controls were not built for systems that learn, evolve, and ship faster than a policy can keep up. Literally, these systems are evolving overnight as new information comes into them, and it looks and tears apart the information in a different manner. All right, so entirely new risks that we introduce. It's not just the models, it's the ecosystem now, right? We build faster, and we have more feeds, and then we run it all. So let's start with that root of all AI risk, the data integrity. Again, I will hammer this a dozen times. Garbage in, garbage out. So if your inputs are wrong, everything downstream is going to inherit that flaw. You just don't win. All right, now comes the outgoing lifecycle risk. Even good models degrade silently as data context or environments evolve. We've seen that as we've seen some of the major vendors even change their models. We saw responses change that were one that we used to believe, and now they had changed completely the second time with the newest release of a model. Once models are live, human and system interactions become the new attack surface. So once a new model goes, we're all out there trying to tear it apart and see what we can do to it, how we can influence it by giving it new garbage in, and we also look to see whether the guardrails around it have actually changed or been modified in any way. Finally, the external systematic threat, so false data, misinformation, hallucinations that pollute everything upstream and downstream. Now, you can read the studies, and they'll tell you that hallucinations are slowly going away. They're getting better, right? I can't argue that they're getting worse. The reason that they're getting better is because they're starting to understand what's going on in the data. It's less of it's a black magic that's going on inside there. We're not sure what's going on. We're not sure how the data is being labeled. So the models are actually getting better. We're labeling our data better. The end state, though, your systems are now making, not suggesting decisions. So that autonomy, they are literally making decisions based on how we've weighted the data, which direction is pushing, and then we're even, making decisions to whether how to act upon the data. So we're going to dive into my pillars here. So as I said, we got three of them. I've got transparency. You can't manage what you can't map. This has been the same for security for years and years. All right. Your first step is visibility. If you don't know what's hitting your firewall, you can't stop what's hitting your firewall. So knowing what models depend on, right? What data they're trained with and what vendors are using and embedding in their third-party AI. So transparency isn't about catching your vendors lying. It's about knowing what they don't know about their own models. So have that mindset, shift your mindset. Don't just audit the outputs, audit what those inputs are. Remember I was talking, that provenance is your new perimeter. So understanding the data that they use to train their models, where they got it. Did they get it from other customers? Did they generate themselves? Did they do synthetic generation? Those type of things are really important to how you actually understand what your perimeter is and what data, what the AI is going to do and behave with regards to your infrastructure. What do we ask before we buy our AI? This is really important, right? You're getting ready to add it to your infrastructure, whether it's going to be, user use, is it inside of a new vendor product we're having, or whether we're developing against it. So procurement is actually now our first line of defense. That contract is really going to help you understand what's coming in and out, because most AI risk starts with that vendor opacity. If your suppliers can't answer the basic questions about their models, you're taking on their risk. It's all yours. So bake your verifications into your contracts. Don't assume, ask what's going on with regards to it. You want to understand how they get it. You want to understand the update cadence. How do they label things? Are there hidden integrations that they're using underneath? You want transparency into how they perform their stuff. But as we all know in the security industry, trust but verify. All right. So that's what we've got to do as we look at new pieces of AI. All right. What do you do? How do you do these? These 6 questions are going to help you with your vendor. All right. So do you train on our data? This is probably the most important question to ask when you're talking to a new vendor that's going to offer you an AI. How do they train? I recently was working with a company who was looking at a new system for their support. And as part of the contract, I went, wait a minute. So we are going to give you all of our data that's then going to train your models to give back to us so you most mimic one of our own support staff. But while I'm doing that, you're also going to use that data to train your models to then sell the product to my competitor. So you really need to understand sort of in your head how much, one, is there risk associated with the data that you're using and sharing to train, but also what data are you sharing? Did you guys do a good job of cleaning it? Are they using it with it? Most vendors will tell you, oh no, we anonymize the data. There's a degree of anonymization, sure, but at some point there still has to be some underlying value to it, or else anonymized data means nothing. So clarify whether that customer data is used for model training, fine-tuning, or improvement. Require explicit opt-outs and retention terms. All right, so where does your training and fine-tuning data come from? So if they're not using your data, how did they train their systems? What were their upstream data sources? And are those upstream data sources compliant? You don't want to be down that road and suddenly discover that the data they were buying was from California users, and for some reason or another, it's now attached to you. That'll get you in trouble. How do you validate and secure your model updates? So how do they go through and make sure that the new updates are good, that everything's working correctly, and that they're happy with it? So understand how they're patching. How do they retrain? How do they release new stuff? What visibility do you have in your model's decision logic or performance drift? So ensure transparency into that. Do they understand how to see whether their models are drifting? Which third-party AI or infrastructure providers do you depend on? A lot of cases, they're leveraging existing large-scale AI. So who are they using? How they use it? Are they leveraging? Do they have their own data pools associated with it? They have their own enterprise association, those type of things. And finally, what contractual rights do we have for our audit, rollback, and incident disclosure? Because at some point, a board member might look at you and go, hey, what happens if they screw up? So verify what your legal levers are so you can't be governed by them. Pillar 2, regulatory readiness. So regulation isn't coming evenly or even cleanly here. The EU is starting to enforce it. Well, they did that the same to us with GDPR. So the US, we're encouraging regulation, but we're not really there. What happens here? Everyone's guessing, all right? So we had the executive order in January of 2025, which was pro-adopt, go AI. Now, it wasn't pro-governance. So what does that mean? Well, that means the accountability is going to fall back on you, the enterprise. So what I'm encouraging you to do right now, build your compliance roadmap. Don't wait. Don't put it up on the shelf and go, we don't have regulations yet. We'll get back to it. All right. Before the rules are written, they're going to be written around someone else's mistakes. Don't be the one that they write the rules around. All right. Now, AI regulation will also follow the same curve as data privacy. From confusion, what do? To the controls. Oh, God, this is really tough. To finally the fines. Oh, man, that's going to cost me $1. So remember, regulation is the floor. It's not the ceiling. Go above and beyond. I've been saying this about every compliance framework that has been thrown at us since the beginning of my security career. All right. This is one of the best slides that I could come up with. It really, and this is something you might hear me preach on a regular basis. We played this. All right. We had cloud, privacy, and AI. Same playbooks, just a new surface. So we can go to the cloud and SaaS security era, right? We had cloud adoption. Oh, we're going to put it in everywhere. We had shared responsibility. Wait, does AWS handle that? Who's responsible here? We had that first gen security teams. There's several members of Cloud Security Alliance who were part of those. And then early breaches really exposed the fact that we didn't know what we were doing a lot of times and the misconfigurations and access gaps. All right. Boom, now comes along, hey, we got to protect everybody's data. And that was Europe saying, we're giving all this information away. People really own their data. Let's protect it. So that was GDPR, California's Privacy Act, SHIMS 2. We got regulatory baselines. This is the way you protect a user's information. Yeah, good, we like that. But there was still that confusion over what is personal data and what's the consent scope. Do I hand it to you and say, hey, here you go, I give you my data? All right. We had privacy officers. I was actually a privacy officer a couple of times, which is great fun. Still can't tell you what my job description was. But we became the data stewards to that data. We were ones who, at the end of the day, were responsible if that data spilled out to the internet. I described it as this. If I could print a piece of paper, put your data on it, and go out and hand it to somebody on the street, and it wouldn't get me on the front page of the Wall Street Journal for a data breach, then it was safe, and I didn't need to do security encryption around it. If it was going to get me arrested or thrown up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, we didn't do it. All right, that was how we protected data. We had the early fines that were punishing our careless data handling. Now, we're in the AI regulation. So we have the EU AI Act, we have NIST that's trying to put stuff together, we have SEC AI disclosures that are really just reshaping our accountability. Who's responsible, what's going on, those type of things. Look, confusion over what qualifies as high risk AI. Remember how we didn't know what was PII, now what is high risk AI. We also have governance teams that are being created inside of companies to discuss the models, the ethics associated, biases in our responses, and look at that. Early enforcement targets opaque or biased AI systems. So we've already seen it, right? So every new wave, every new technology starts the same way. We get that innovation, woo, we're all excited. We get the oversight, hey, don't be doing that. And then finally we have the accountability, hey, it's your fault. You should own this, all right? So we've seen it. Keep paying attention. All right. Finally, pillar 3, board level metrics, all right? So translating all that risk we just talked about. So remember, we talked about the transparency. What do we know? We talked about what the new stuff was versus amplified stuff. And then we talked about what should we care about with regards to our vendors. Now, somebody's going to actually look at us and say, hey, I need you to tell me what my associated risk is. So we're translating that into something a board, so someone with the money basically, is going to actually recognize. They don't care about model ways. They don't care about token counts. They really want to understand the context associated with what you're doing. So what I encourage you to do is at the very least track 3 things. Your exposure footprint. So how big is your AI use across the enterprise? How is it localized to specific groups? What does your AI footprint look like? I want you to talk to your board about your detection speed. So how fast can you spot drift or leakage? How fast can you make a determination that a piece of information may have fallen out and that somebody had done something they shouldn't have? And then finally, vendor transparency. Who do you actually trust? How you can look at it from the aspect of what are my contracts? These are good contracts. But also, here's one of my favorite ones. Vendor transparency actually occurs across an entire organization. Sometimes there are people inside of your organization who may be actually swallowing risk for you, and you're unaware that they're swallowing risk. And so what you want to do is that should actually be tracked as your overall risk, but also is part of what's going on with regards to how you're approaching things. So pay attention to those things. Basically, you translate all of it into cost, continuity, and compliance. Language they already understand. Keep it visual too. Dashboards will always be the technical diagram every time. So translating your AI risk actually into that board. So remember, we anchor oversight and metrics, not fear, because we're not the house of no anymore, all right? We're actually good security stewards. We believe in our programs. We're doing things to make ourselves more successful. So I gave you a couple metrics, but these 4 metrics show where AI risk lives, how fast it moves, how visible it is, and where we've accepted it, all right? So the exposure footprint shows us where AI risk is inside our business, all right? Detection and containment speed tells us whether we can react fast enough when something goes wrong. The vendor transparency index will show us how much visibility we have into our AI supply chain. We know where it's really located across our enterprise. And that's actually probably the scariest piece of all of it. Who's using AI? Where is it? And then finally, that risk acceptance trend that I just talked about quantifies where we've made deliberate trade-offs when we've chosen speed or innovation over control. Oh, look, this solves all my problems. Did we actually look underneath the hood and make those decisions? All right, questions I wish boards would ask me, all right? If they start asking these, we finally are having that right conversation. So where are we using AI? If I'm not already presenting this metric to them, and I want them to ask me, where are you using it? Was this intentional, or did we just discover that somebody was using it? This is forcing that visibility beyond official inventories, all right? I want to know who owns AI risk inside of our vendor. So did the CTO accept this? Did the CISO accept this? Did the CFO? Who took it? So we're looking at those accountability gaps inside of it. This is really important. What would failure look like tomorrow? The board is asking me, what happens when things go south? Who's responsible, all right? So we're testing whether detection and rollback actually exist. When speed and control collide, what wins? All right, so this is us rushing to get something out the door. So whether we took risk acceptance, we evaluated it, or we pushed it, all right? Are we learning faster than our systems? So this is actually that flip back on the associated leadership inside of your company. So we're turning that mirror back on the leaders, not the technology, right? Technology is only as good or as bad as the implementation and those who are implementing and using it, all right? So we're going to flip it around. We want to understand that. And finally, when, not if, AI goes wrong, how fast can we recover? Stop looking at it from that prevention, but the resilience. How do we quickly fix ourselves if something goes wrong? All right. Most of us still ask if we're using it responsibly, and that's as if that's something we can actually audit. It's not. The real oversight happens when leadership starts connecting those AI decisions to business continuity, BCPs, and it's not just the compliance checkbox. Oh, look, we're good, we move on, all right? If they even are asking a couple of these programs, we're probably 90% ahead of the rest of the industry with regards to how we're interacting with AI and what we're doing with regards to our risks. All right, we're almost done. You're almost tired. I've been rapid 100 miles an hour here. So we're going to turn, I want you to leave. I want you to go back and start thinking about this. So it's really turning your awareness into action. So you're going to start simple. You're going to start now. Awareness means nothing without action. So you got to do it, right? So start mapping that AI supply chain. If you don't know where your models and data come from, nothing else matters. So start there. Start looking what's coming in the door. How is it influencing, and where does that information flow across your infrastructure? Start building a compliance roadmap before you're forced to. Start saying to your different departments, hey, we should pay attention to this. Tell me how you're using it. Tell me what tests you've performed with regards to looking at this. But let's add it right now so that I don't have to suddenly scramble in 9 months because somebody is slamming with a new framework that requires me to have 20 policies in place, an entire ethics review on how we're doing it, and controls and demonstrations that everything's in play. Build a KPI dashboard now to translate all this into something that you can actually go ahead and start sharing upstream. You go, oh, here's what our AI footprint looks like. Hey, this is the associated risk we've accepted or we've not accepted. But let's start doing it now. Let's not wait for it. You don't need a new department. Don't go out and hire 20 new people. Just start thinking about it now. Start implementing the small things. It will help actually make you more successful. You need that visibility, accountability, and about 3 more questions in every vendor call, just so you know what's going on with regards to the products you're purchasing. All right, thank you guys for talking and playing with me today. Listen to what I have to say about AI and the supply chain. The companies that win in AI won't be the ones who avoided risk. They'll be ones who understood it, governed it, and shipped and allowed them to ship faster. And AI supply chain isn't about saying no. It's just about knowing what you're building and how you're giving it to your staff. So don't avoid your AI risk. Lead with your eyes open. Look at it, move forward. If you have other questions for me, feel free to reach out. My name is Ward Spangenberg again. Thank you. I'm an executive in residence. You can find me at Ward at 1ITZ, or you can find my company 1ITZ.com. Thank you guys. Have a great day.